another episode of In the Bonus. Ladies, we are 1 week closer. I'm like excited. I'm already thinking we are 1 week closer to the Big East Women's Basketball Tournament. That is like the mode that I am in. We've got Lisa Carlin, Isis Young, Kim Adams, and myself, Meghan Caffrey, for another fresh episode, January 29th. We are just trekking right along. That is very true.
It's terrifying, actually. We're like on the cusp of February.
Yeah, it's going to be here. It's basically here. And I mean, I'm excited. That just means tournament time. Mohegan Sun Arena is getting closer. But we have plenty of basketball to play before that. So let's get right into it. Let's waste no more time, okay? Kim, let's start. You were all over the place this weekend. We had a little bit of men's, we had a little bit of women's games that you were on the call for with the action. One thing was consistent. You were with Matt Schumacher all weekend long. We love that. But you had a good game yesterday,
yeah, well,
huh?
Matt and I, we've worked like 3 games in a row now together. Going back to last weekend, I was at the home of Lisa Carlin, Marquette on Saturday. Exciting men's game there. Fiserv Forum is an incredible venue. And then hopped down to Chicago for Villanova at DePaul on Sunday. Interesting game. Really good first half. A lot of offense. We've seen a lot of defensive battles in the Big East, which is great. Like, good defense should be applauded. But this was one of the first Big East games where the ladies were just going shot for shot, and it was fun to see. DePaul did get into some early foul trouble. 2 of their starters had 3 fouls in the first quarter. So it was hard for them to get in a rhythm. And then Villanova just shot the lights out in the second half. They had come off of a really tough loss, overtime loss at Providence, a game I believe they led by 15 at the half. Both DePaul and Villanova had both come into this one from overtime. So I may be mixing up the numbers, but I believe Villanova blew a 15-point lead, lost in overtime to Providence. They had lost to Creighton before the game like that. So they were hungry for a win. Second half was incredibly impressive from an offensive perspective. Yes, Lucy Olson was fantastic like she normally is. She finished 1 assist shy of a double-double. She had 24 points and 9 rebounds. But what was most impressive to me, when I spoke to Denise Dillon ahead of the game, she said, we're still looking for more contributors offensively and consistently. Well, in this game, Villanova had 4 players in double figures, and they had 2 players with 9. So they were 2 points away from having 6 players in double figures. They had a season-high 26 assists. They made 13 threes. I believe that was also a season high. And they had, I'm looking at the box score now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They had 7 different players hit a 3. And I think they just really made some strides offensively. My first time seeing Maddie Weber live, the impressive freshman, this week's Big East Freshman of the Week, was very impressed by her. Just very calm, good offensive player, nice size, can get up and down the floor. So I think it was probably maybe the most impressive game we've seen from Villanova, definitely in Big East play in terms of the offensive numbers they put up. So I think Denise Dillon has to be pretty happy, but now it's about that full team effort coming through every game where they're not really relying on Lucy to have to give them like 35 a night.
And that's been the conversation for Denise Dillon, head coach of Villanova, right? Making sure that there is balanced scoring and that there isn't all this pressure on Lucy. On the other side of that game, DePaul, they've been struggling. 3rd straight loss this week against St. John's, and then they get Villanova, of course, as you're mentioning. And it's been a tough run for Doug Bruno and this Blue Demon side because of the scheduling and kind of everything, how it's shaken out for this DePaul side. I got to speak to Coach Bruno, and it's an interesting roster that makes up his squad. Because there's older players, right? There's a lot of veteran age players, but a lot of them are new to this program. So it's an old crew, but it's a new crew. There's 4 freshmen, 6 graduate students. Only 1 or 2 of them have been there for more than 3 years, or at least 3 years. So the struggles that Coach Bruno faces are very different than other coaches around the country, frankly, because so many times you have to balance, okay, you've got veteran players that know your system, understand the foundation that your school is trying to play. And so let's just keep growing them as players. And then you have freshmen that you're trying to adjust to the game. He has both and all of it. He is trying to adjust veteran players who've played 4 years already or played 3 years to his style and kind of how things work at DePaul and going up against Big East competition and what that looks like and how it's different all the time. So he leans a lot on graduate forward Jory Allen. She's the coach on the floor for them. As a forward, she's a graduate student. She's played the longest, frankly, under Doug Bruno. And as a really smart player, she knows what's happening on the court. And so she also has that coach's like mentality in her because her dad was a really great high school coach or is a really great high school coach in Indiana, played at DePaul under Roy Meyer. Like there's a lot of family coaching dynamics there. And Jory kind of embodies that when she's on the court for DePaul. And Coach Bruno leans on that to kind of gather the group together and get things going. One thing Coach Bruno talked a lot about is how important it is for his team to play the game between the ears. It's head, heart, and guts. Mm-hmm. That's it. It is. When scoring's inconsistent, when you're getting uncomfortable, you have to remember that you're playing for the teammates on either side of you, that it is a mental game. Can you be a goldfish and forget the play that just happened and try to restart things? But head, heart, and guts, he talked about that and kind of how important that is for his group, especially when you look at where DePaul is in their schedule. Of course, they're coming off a bit of a slump, a tough slump. UConn, St. John's, Villanova. Now they've got Butler, Georgetown on the road. So now is the time for them to kind of pick their heads up, say, can we learn from these moments in these games? And how do we continue to move forward? And frankly, so much of it is mental and just making sure that everyone understands their role and kind of what they can contribute on the court. It's growing pains and a tough season, tough part of the year. We talked about it last week about how the middle of the schedule in the pack, it's tough there. It is tough. You're stuck in the mud at this point in the season for sure, just trying to make it to Mohegan Sun.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting, right? You look at teams like a DePaul, who it has that newer feel, to your point, right, Lisa? And then you look at teams like a Creighton, where there's a lot of vets on that team. There's a lot of players who have been playing together for quite some time. And ICE, you were able to see them in person going up against, they hosted Seton Hall, which has turned into a very fun rivalry game within the well. How was that? You were out in Omaha. How was your quick trip out there?
Yeah, it was a good trip. I actually got tickets to go to the men's game. They had their pink out game. And so it was everyone with the signs of the cancer survivors. And there was like a moment of silence. It was the most emotional thing ever. But it was also a packed house, like sellout crowd. So that was a really cool experience. I hadn't been to a men's college basketball game this year. But the game wise, it was good. I mean, back and forth rivalry. It's always a physical matchup between Creighton and the Pirates. But like you said, it's just a veteran experience really for Creighton that showed in the end. It was a tough fourth quarter. Both teams had a tough time scoring. But Emma Ronsick played the most of the game, most of the second half with 4 fouls. And Jim Flannery elected to keep her in there. And he told us before the game, like, I don't really believe in pulling players out for foul trouble, especially when you have experienced players. And so Emma was able to stay in the game. She did the team high 18. Lauren Jensen and Morgan Molly also had double figures. So it was a regular day for them, right? It's just 3 players in double figures. I thought for Seton Hall, they had some chances and opportunities to win the game, especially down the stretch of the fourth quarter. I think this team is still struggling to find consistency with scoring. Azana Baines had her normal double-figure game. I think she ended up with 15 or 17. But after her, it's like who else is going to be consistent and score? And so they're still trying to figure it out. I still think they're one of the most dangerous teams, though, in the Big East because of when it all clicks, they're so good and they're so deep, and their defense has been consistent. That was a low-scoring game. I think Creighton averages 72 points a game. I think there was only 56 scored that day. And so, yeah, it was just a tough matchup, but it was a good win for Creighton. You got to protect home court and Big East play, and they did that.
And talking about tough matchups, Ice, perfect transition into the top 15 matchup that we had this past weekend. UConn took on Notre Dame. It was Saturday night, and the Huskies did lose to the Fighting Irish. I would love to hear your thoughts. We'll go around the horn with this one a little bit on your overall thoughts on the game, maybe your thoughts on UConn as well. I know we chatted a little bit about them last week too, but Ice, we'll kind of start there with you. I know that you were interested in their defense a little.
Yeah, I thought that down the stretch their defense wasn't as tough as we would have expected it to be. I thought that Notre Dame didn't have a problem scoring down the stretch. They didn't have to go to plan B or C or D. It was plan A and Hannah Hidalgo coming off a ball screen and then making plays from there. I think though when you watch that game, I mean, you talk about some of the freshmen that are playing across the country, like watching Hannah Hidalgo drop 34 points and 10 rebounds. I saw the post game clip where Diana Taurasi is like giving her, the little knucklehead rub and like tells her good game. And so I think it was a good game like for women's basketball, just in terms of the exposure. I know UConn had all of their alum come back because they were honoring those teams that had won a couple of championships. But I just felt like for UConn, it might have been a wake up call in terms of their defense, right? It's a team that's still playing very young players. They've got two freshmen that are starting. It's hard to know the system, to be acclimated. And so I just felt like it was a wake-up call for their defense and for that to really improve as they go through conference play. I mean, we know that right now they're head and shoulders above the rest, right? I think even Creighton, they beat 30-plus points. But now it's like, hey, how good can we be defensively? Can we hold teams to 50 points? Because when we come to tournament play, that's what you need to do. Like in a tournament, you've got to play defense. Your defense has to travel. And so I think it might have been the wake-up call they needed to figure out some things defensively. But it was just a really good basketball game to watch, though. Prime time. It was awesome.
Kim, you're up next.
Yeah, I mean, I was certainly shocked. Maybe not shocked. Maybe I was shocked by the results. Just because it was a home game, it was Gamble Pavilion, sold out, all the alumni in the building. I would have just expected a bit more, I guess toughness is the word for UConn. Like Notre Dame, Hannah Hidalgo, they were clearly the tougher group out there on the road battling. And that was surprising to me because of how dominant UConn has been. They've been rolling through the Big East. So I don't think it was an unfortunate loss for, I think, the whole conference, just to UConn. UConn is the Big East top dog right now, and to see them get beat pretty handily on their home floor, pretty surprising. I'm with Ice on the defense. I mean, I'm like the number one fan of Hannah Hidalgo, but as a veteran team, how can you let a freshman come in and be the best player in the game when you have
bully them
on the floor? You have Aaliyah Edwards, like. How could you at not some point be like, enough is enough? Like, somebody needs to start defending this freshman. So again, 1,000% credit to Hannah Hidalgo, who, according to her, she doesn't know if she's a freshman or a senior. She's just out there getting but it's just like, I think mentally there needs to be a little bit more toughness there.
I think it could be a sense of a wake-up call, though, Ice. Like, I think you use that phrase because of how UConn hasn't been tested on multiple facets throughout Big East play, right? Like they get tested in certain areas, but this was a game in which Notre Dame was able to test them on a lot of different ways, right? With their versatility and Notre Dame outscored UConn 22-7 over the last 9 minutes of the game. That is bad. That is rough stat right there. That's really bad. 22-7. So this is an opportunity now this is really bad. Like you don't expect that from a UConn side, especially that late in the game when that's an opportunity to shift into another gear. It's going to be interesting kind of how UConn now comes out and changes from this, right? Like you get embarrassed as a player when a situation like this happens. How are they willing to change and continue to grow from this and move forward? It'll be interesting to see kind of what changes from this crew.
Yeah, no, it definitely will be. And you use it, right, as learning experiences. You take tough losses like that, and you learn from it, and you see, let's get back in the win column. What can we change? And speaking of teams who got back into the win column this past weekend, Marquette, the Golden Eagles, Lisa, your Golden Eagles came away with a win. They did take on Butler this past weekend, and after Marquette, who did have a tough stretch, they had Villanova and UConn. They dropped both of those. They were able to go back to the Al and win against Butler. And guess who we had on the finally we got to have on the podcast this week, Marquette alum, and her titles go on and on. But Chloe Marotta joined us on the pod this week. This conversation is such a treat. We had a blast talking to her. Everybody listening to this one. We're so excited to welcome into In the Bonus Chloe Marotta, who has probably enough titles, just like how when we do our outro, former Marquette superstar, podcast host, professional basketball player, now entering the realm of basketball analyst, sideline reporter as well. Chloe, the list goes on and on, girl. Welcome into In the Bonus.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. We had the chance to chat a little bit before, but I would love for you to kind of just talk about the latest experience that you've been kind of diving into. You've had the opportunity to work as an analyst recently with the conference, also as a sideline reporter too. So dive in and tell us what it's been like being in front of the camera these days.
It has been a blast. Credit to a lot of you guys in this podcast. I feel like I've talked to many of you at some point about this career, and to look at all of you guys as women in this area has been awesome. And so I was excited to talk to the Big East as I was playing overseas, and just kind of gave my interest. And I want to do this color commentary. I want to get into sports broadcasting, and the Big East has been awesome and giving me some opportunities. And so I was able to call the Marquette versus Xavier game on TV, which was awesome. First experience actually live. And I had a blast. I mean, as you guys know, many of you guys play, and this is just, you talk about your experience, you talk about what you know, and as the game goes on. And if I'm not playing basketball, I sure want to be talking about basketball. And so I've had a great time. In addition, you mentioned some of the sideline stuff and interviews, and I mean, the girls at Marquette are still my best friends. So as much as I can't be as biased towards them, it's fun to get some interviews with your great friends after the game.
Chloe, I want to ask you about this because you touched on it. We've talked. I mean, like Marquette alums here, we hang out, we know each other, but 100%.
It took Lisa all of 1 minute to mention that.
Did you expect anything less, Ice? Absolutely not. But Chloe, I feel like it was years ago that you first pulled me aside and were like, hey, can I ask you some questions? Like, I think I was interviewing you, and afterwards you were like, wait, so now can I ask you questions about broadcasting and getting into it, which was so cool. Now that you've kind of made that transition and you've put on the headset, you've sat sideline and you've called games, how has it been for you transitioning from player to commentator for this chunk of time that you've been able to do it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely weird because you go from a basketball player to now what's your identity, and I think many of us have gone through this, whether it's been soccer, basketball, whatever sport it is. And you kind of look around like, what is my next thing going to be? And so as I sit there and I watch the team that I played with, and I'm now on the sidelines reporting on it, I'm like, wow, it's kind of weird, But I think luckily just being around basketball for so long, and I was a journalism undergrad, I feel like it's pretty normal to me, honestly. I think that, Meghan mentioned my podcast, and we talk about sports, and this is my family's, thing. We just sit and we talk about sports. And so for me, I kind of just feel like a little bit natural almost. However, the headset kind of gets in the hair. You gotta be a little bit more appropriate when you're talking about some things. You can't be as biased. I was talking to some of the Big East people, and they're like, you got to be careful not saying us and we. And when you're talking about Marquette, and I'm like, hey, that is something I'll have to get used to. So yes, there's still some things that obviously I have to learn and to get to your guys' level at some point. And so, but I've been having a blast with it. It's been awesome.
You are a natural for sure. And the headset, it takes getting used to. The key tip, I think, with like female hair is to have it taped at the top. Never let it be splitting open, because then your hair gets like pushed up into a little poof. So if it's not taped, ask them for black tape to tape it. And then, yeah, you got to figure out, is your hair back? Is it down? Okay, but Chloe, so you spent, it was 5
Smart.
years at Marquette, right? You did the 5th year. So like we associate you, like we still can't believe like you're not a student athlete anymore. So I have kind of a 2-part question. What is the best part about being removed from college now, and what do you miss the most, whether it has to do with sports or just being a regular college student?
Oh man. So I would say the best part about being removed right now is that I've had plenty of time with my family and friends, which, it's so worth it in the moment to sacrifice those things because it's what you care about. It's your passion. It's, basketball is it. And now I feel like, man, I have had a chance to, do things that I hadn't done in such a long time. Go out to dinner, spend Thanksgiving with my family, spend Christmas with my family, things like that. And that has been very special to me. And so I knew this moment was coming. I knew I was going to sacrifice for a certain part of my life, and then this is going to be it. And don't regret anything in that way. But man, I miss it too. I have been back to some Marquette practices and just kind of been around the group. And it's so much fun when you're around people 24/7. You get to learn about them. And the girls laugh at me sometimes. I still have a code to the locker room, grab some snacks here and there. And they're all like, you need to get out of the locker room. Like, you've been here for too long. And I'm like, I understand. So yeah, so there's definitely some things I miss with that. But I'm lucky to live close to them and see them all the time. So,
Chloe, what was it like playing overseas basketball? Just being in Hungary, spending time in Italy, getting to play at a different level. How did you enjoy that experience?
what a great experience, first of all. I mean, not everyone has the chance to do something like this. And, I never studied abroad. And so for me, the experience was trying to get the most out of the culture. And you
Mm.
really can't get it in any other way than being on a team of all Hungarians, being on a coach of that only speak Hungarian, so you're truly just diving into a completely different culture. As we've mentioned, I've lived in Milwaukee my whole life. So getting out, being in a different city it was awesome for me. I spent 4.5 months in Budapest, and Budapest it's a great city. You can't ask to be in a better place, honestly. There's, stuff to do everywhere, and you're never lonely, which was great. And the basketball too it's something new. It's something to learn from. I think like no one will ever understand the difference between the two unless you do it. And so
Yeah.
there's so much to compare. There's the teaching of basketball is completely different. And so for me, that was kind of interesting, but also exciting too, because I was like, okay, I don't know anything about this way of learning how to play basketball, of playing it this way. So that was great. And then also just kind of the crowd is a little bit different too. They bang drums the whole time. They can say whatever they want to say. You also don't understand them, so it's kind of like it doesn't really. It just kind of it's kind of crazy out there, and so it was great. And I have a completely different life, hours and hours away from me overseas, that was so interesting to live. And now I'm back home and I think about all the people I met. And so I'm so lucky to have had that experience.
I love how you talked about learning a little bit in that. And I do want to bring this up, Chloe, because some fans of the podcast might actually not know this, that the Big East does every single year for women's basketball players who are rising juniors and seniors. They put on a program called Transition Game. Kim has been to many of them with myself. She's moderated discussions. You have also gone through the program that the conference offers, Transition Game. And within it, we hear from all different players who have played overseas, who are broadcasters, who have gone out in the corporate world. And for someone like yourself who has been able to seamlessly transition, basically, it feels like, out of college into the pro rankings, and now as you're diving into sports broadcasting a little, I would just love to hear your take on how that program maybe got your mind starting to think a little differently and how beneficial it is, because credit to the Big East Conference, a lot of conferences don't offer programming like this.
Absolutely. I mean, transition games was a little different for me because it was during COVID, and so it was virtual. However, they gave me such a good experience regardless of it being virtual or in person. I think that they really made sure to connect people. And I think one of those people, honestly, was Val Ackerman, which is the commissioner of the Big East. And you don't, coming in as a player, to have a connection and a relationship with the commissioner is unbelievable. And so I would say credit to her, especially just for opening up, being willing to talk to athletes, give us her contact information. I mean, this is a big time, she's big time. And so I thought that was really cool just to kind of hear from her. And she's come to Marquette before and kept those relationships with us. And so that was awesome. And then obviously to hear from some of you guys, knowing that this is what I wanted to do in my future, just to have those contacts. I think the Big East does a really good job on staying true to who they are and understanding that someday these players might want to work in the Big East. And so how can we help them early, and how can we give them that opportunity outside when they graduate? And so, credit to Big East for sure.
Yeah, I love that you gave credit to Val Ackerman too. She definitely does a really good job of making, she's larger than life, frankly, her role, what she does, and she makes herself really accessible and really normal to student athletes, to people like us as well, so that you do feel comfortable to talk to her and ask her questions or reach out, and you do have those connections. That's really cool. So Meg mentioned it. You got a podcast. Tell us about it. What are you talking about? Where do we listen? Fill us in.
Yeah, so the podcast is called The Dinner Table, and it's me and my older sister Carly and my older brother Cameron. And my little sister, I'll give her credit too. She kind of helps us with the social media side of things. She's that creative bug in our family, so she helps us with that. But kind of, I was in Budapest. I was just sitting there on my bed, like, I need something else to do, like besides play basketball. And so I talked to a few people, and Megan McEwen, a great reporter as well, is somebody who kind of gave me the idea, like, start a podcast, have fun with it. And my family is almost perfect for this type of thing, because we truly sit at the dinner table and talk about sports. And so we decided just to put a camera and some microphones in front of us and keep it natural and bring some guests on. And so we try to do it once a week. And it's been a lot of football conversation lately because the Green Bay Packers have done a great job. And now that they lost, I was sad, but I was also kind of excited because I'm like, let's get back on this college basketball thing. So now we are posting on Spotify. We're trying to get it on YouTube as well. But we have an Instagram, The Dinner Table. And so it has been very fun. We have a great connection with each other as siblings. We talk all the time, all day, every day. And so this is just an addition to our FaceTimes, maybe.
Yeah, Chloe, I was going to ask you about your family next, because before we went live for this, you were saying you're back home. We've got family coming through all the time. And I've met your brother. I think I've talked to Carly. I don't know if we've ever met in person, but I've met, I feel like I know your family, even if I don't really.
Yeah.
What is a dinner with the Marottas like, or like a holiday with the Marotta family?
Yeah.
Well, my mom likes to do things big, I will tell you that. And so when we talk about holidays, it's all of my cousins here at the house. We host all the time. So anything we like to host, it could be a Packer game and it's a big event. It is, that is my mom for you. And so when we're sitting at the dinner table, we all have very similar personalities. And I think that that's something that not all siblings have. You kind of have a quiet one, you kind of have a loud one, whatever it is, but we pretty much are the same. And so sometimes it's hard to all get out what we need to say because we all like to talk and have some fun. But we just have so much experience in sports right now. My sister's a sports director in Madison, and she's the youngest female sports director in Wisconsin. Wow. So she does a phenomenal job with what she does. Yeah. And so she is the oldest, right? Everyone looks up to her. And so she kind of started this whole thing, and Cameron played basketball in college and I played basketball in college and professional. And so there's just so many things we can sit and talk about. And I think everyone likes to hear it, like we're interested in what's happening in sports. And so, yeah, so you can find a big dinner table whenever you come here. There's many, many people at the dinner table. And many of the people that we've had on the show have been on the dinner table. And so, yeah, it's always a good time.
Chloe, I'm a fashionista, so I have to ask about clothes. I saw your first game day look that you posted. It was like a soft sweater, nice pants combo. But take me through like what you want your wardrobe to be, like as a broadcaster, because that's the most important part. Like, who cares if we know the X's and O's? It really matters how we look and how we showed up, right, Kim? Right, Lisa? It really matters, like
That's
how
the
we showed up.
hardest part of the job.
Absolutely.
Finding the outfit.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh. For sure. I've already experienced that. I'm like, oh God, another game. I got to go get a new outfit. Especially when you're like seeing so much, you're like, you can't wear the same thing twice. So you're kind of, so I would say I'm broke, but I'm also really looking forward to buying it and styling more. When I look at my style, I don't know. I kind of like to be colorful. I, kind of just like a bright look on the camera, I think is like really important. But I've had kind of fun with it a little bit. I know I wore like a baby blue sweater on the first day, and I've kind of looked at you guys and what you've worn, and I'm like, that looks really cute. Or Andrea Carter had like the best outfit on against the LSU game. I'm like, how do I wear that? So, I mean, my inspo is what you guys are doing. So I'm definitely looking at that and stuff. And so, but it's been fun. It's definitely part of the job. Look good, feel good, play good, talk good, whatever it is. So
No, for sure.
Yeah, Drea has the suit thing down. Like, she's got all the nice slim jacket pantsuits. Like, she always looks so clean and like crisp. Yeah, I like her fashion for inspo too, for sure.
For sure.
All right, Chloe, I'm going to hand the keys over to Kim, because it's your turn to play in the
I
bonus.
feel like I haven't done it in a while because we didn't have a guest last week, and then I missed the previous show. I might be a little rusty here. But so basically we ask all of our guests 5 questions, and it's in the bonus, 5 fouls to get in the bonus. Yours might be a little different just because you're an alumni. Really, just one might be a little different. But answer it however you want. All right, number 1, since you're still in the Milwaukee area, I can ask you this. Where's your favorite place to eat in Milwaukee or around Marquette?
Calderone Club. It's like a nice little Italian restaurant. It's the place to be.
Italian?
Nice.
You're speaking my language.
What do you say?
Calderone Club, Italian?
Yeah.
All right, next flip.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, a piece of content you're consuming right now that you like. It could be a show, podcast, a book. What do you recommend for us?
Oh, this is a good one. This is kind of like one of those guilty pleasure shows, I guess. It's the Ultimatum on Netflix. I was just watching it. It's kind of like that. It's those cheesy love Netflix original ones. My uncle and I were just watching it nonstop the last week. So that's the one, I think.
Oh, I love that.
Wait, what is this? Apparently, I need to get a Netflix subscription now.
It's one of those weird. It's just one of those weird ones. It's like the
one couple, it's a couple, and one person is like ready to get married, and the other is not. So they basically are like, we're either getting married or we're breaking up, and they date somebody else. It's very. I couldn't do it.
It's a recipe for disaster. It's
messy.
It is messy for sure.
Yeah, it is a guilty pleasure though. I'm with you. Okay, number 3. I feel like we know you, so I'm trying to think if we already know this, but a skill or a talent you have outside of basketball.
Oh God, this one's always tough, I think. That's tough because I feel like basketball is what my talent's been these last few years. Let's see.
Well, we know you're a talented broadcaster.
I was going to say you're an analyst. You're a broadcaster now.
Yeah.
You can add that.
Yeah, I can definitely add that to the talents, for sure. Yes.
Great skin.
Skincare. Thank you. Hopefully style turns into some of that as well. I think as we go into the broadcasting thing, I like that recommendation. So.
Okay, number 4.
Perfect.
If you were going to enter, and this could be interesting because you have family who plays too. You're going to enter a 3-on-3 competition, like $1 million on the line. We're going to give you 3 teammates because you can have a sub. You can pick any 3 teammates in the world, any level of basketball, male or female. Who would you pick as your 3 teammates?
Wow, I like this one. I'm gonna go DT for a point guard for sure. I gotta add Stewie for my post. Let's see. So those 2, I'm included in this?
Yeah,
right?
you're one of the 4. So you have
Yeah.
You're not the GM.
All right, so I'm included here. All right, let's see. LeBron. I'm always going to take LeBron. Power forward there.
You're good. That's it.
That's it.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Okay, a lot of love for UConn there. Interesting. All right, last one. This is a new one for you since you are an alumni. What is your favorite memory of Marquette women's basketball that you were a part of?
I'll talk about UConn again, but it's definitely beating UConn at the Al McGuire Center. That is by far my favorite memory. Something I wanted to do since I was a little girl, so that was a great time.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that one.
All right, you completed it in the bonus.
Good. Feeling good.
Chloe, awesome work. See, nice. Some of our guests have crumbled under the pressure. There's no denying that. They've gotten straight anxiety having to answer that. You answered that like a pro.
Okay, good.
Chloe, thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun to catch up. We're excited to continue to watch you crush it in the broadcasting world. Keep it up. It's been so much fun to watch. And also, we're going to give you the quick opportunity. Plug your podcast one more time. So for any fans of In the Bonus, if they want to listen to The Dinner Table, how are they listening to it? Where are they listening to it? Give us that plug, girl.
Yeah, so we put all of our links, all of our social media on Instagram and Twitter under the Dinner Table Podcast. And our actual thing is on Spotify. So you can find the Dinner Table on Spotify. And we'll be uploading links and things to YouTube as well as we go along. And so, yeah, thank you for that, Megan. I appreciate that.
Oh, love it.
Of course, Chloe.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
We'll see.
Thank you, guys.
Chloe.
So I have actually listened to Chloe's podcast. I've listened to probably like 2 episodes. It's really good. So if no one has listened to The Dinner Table quite yet, you guys have to. It's a blast. It's to her point of just, you can tell like the personalities and the family like come through on it. It's you feel like you're just like, I want to go to her house and have dinner with them. All right, ladies. So we have we're recording this podcast Monday night. It's our usual. We're all sleepy at this point in time. However, our podcast is dropping on Wednesday, and tonight, so Wednesday night, we have a stacked night of games. A lot of really, really great matchups. Lisa, I'll start with you with what game you kind of have your eye on tonight, this weekend, all of the things.
Yeah, for sure. So tonight, St. John's hosts Xavier. This is the end of a tough stretch for St. John's. When you look at their schedule, there was some rescheduling that happened, and then they ended up playing 4 games in about 10 days. So they had Seton Hall, DePaul, Georgetown, and Xavier all within the span of 10 days. 2 of those wins, 1 of those a loss, 2 of those overtimes. So it's been a stretch for St. John's, to say the least. They're coming off back-to-back wins over DePaul and then Georgetown, and now it's an opportunity to close out this stretch against Xavier at home before they then take on UConn on Sunday. So it's been an interesting time for Joe Tartamella and his Johnnies at this point. I spoke with Coach about this season and kind of everything was happening and really managing 4 games in 10 days this week. Monday, so today they had off, gave the players a little bit of rest. And you guys know when you're playing so many games back to back in such a short stretch, it really becomes mental preparation, visualization, and less physical preparation. And that's exactly what they were trying to do this week. When you look at Unique Drake, redshirt senior guard, she's had a really tremendous week. She was just averaging over 20 points a game. She had 37 points in that double overtime win at DePaul, her third 30-point game of the season. And this year, her role has changed. Last year, she was off the bench. She was Big East Sixth Woman of the Year. And that was a conversation between Unique Drake and Joe Tardamella about that role that Unique Drake can play. Now she is a starter, and she has bought in completely to what her role is and how that's changed. She's handled the pressure, and her confidence has elevated so much this year, which is why they're seeing her have these really, really good games. She's got a lot of composure and stability in knowing what she does on the court and how she does it and who she is, which has really helped her game and helped her improve. She doesn't let one play affect the next. She's able to really shake things off and have that mentality throughout the games, which has helped a trickle-down effect throughout the entire team for the St. John's group. So in this stretch of a lot of games in not a lot of days, they're leaning on players like Unique Drake to bring that strength and to bring that confidence and that ability on the court to say, all right, some of our transfers that have come in, this is how we're going to play. This is how we do film. If you want a little extra, if you want to go into the gym and do that, you can shake that around. But it's a lot to keep everyone healthy, to stay on top of things. And they've got a quick turnaround because they do it tonight, Wednesday, and then again on Sunday, finally a little bit of a deep breath to some extent, because then their next game isn't until next Friday. So a big week for St. John's, but it's finally closing out. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they tie up the week with a bow, hosting Xavier.
Yeah. Kim, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm going to be on the call for that one actually at Carnesecca, but I may have to pull up a second screen to be looking at timeouts, because we have the rematch of Marquette and Creighton also on Wednesday night, same time, 7:00 Eastern, 6 p.m. local. But I remember just a couple weeks ago, we were on here breaking down the first meeting, which was a tremendous game, high-level game. Stars showed out, went down to the wire, and we were already anticipating the rematch of this one. And it's here Wednesday night tonight, if you're just tuning into this podcast Wednesday morning. But it is an interesting lead up to it, because Creighton is playing much better consistently right now than Marquette. Marquette dropped a couple of games, maybe a bit surprising. They lost to St. John's. They lost to Villanova. And Creighton has really established themselves as the number 2 team in the Big East right now, at least in my opinion. So Creighton's playing, I think, probably better now than they were in the first meeting. And Marquette is trying to build back up a little bit. But that rematch is going to be really interesting. I don't think I even said this, but in case you forgot, Marquette won the first meeting at home. So I would think Creighton is going to want to get their lick back, as they say, and get that win at home. But that should be a really good high level. I love these second round meetings when you're going back to the tape and changing things. You know exactly what went wrong, what did work, what didn't. Like, I love this time of year when you're meeting up for the second time. So while I'm calling St. John Xavier, I may or may not have it up on an iPad, but only checking in the timeouts, of course.
Love it. Ice. What do we got our eyes on, girl?
Yeah, well, Kim talked about it the second time around. So now it's Georgetown and Seton Hall second time around. So that'll happen tonight. In that first one, that game was at Georgetown. Georgetown was leading the entire game. Fourth quarter comes, and Seton Hall, like the dangerous team that they are, comes out of nowhere and steals the game at the very end. And so now Seton Hall is home. They really want to protect home court. Georgetown trying to bounce back. And so I like this game. Both two teams, though, that play, tremendous defense as well. And so excited to see who can score the ball and get efficient shots. So that's on Wednesday. And then if we fast forward to Saturday, we've got Marquette Providence. And I think Marquette arguably has the toughest schedule of the week. I think Providence is no slouch at all, especially at home. The Friars have been playing well. They went 2-0 last week. Gracie Fosa dominated in her games all week, but she had 29 in that win over Villanova on Wednesday. She's the first Big East player since 2019 to win Big East Player of the Week from Providence since 2019. So shout out to the Friars. They're doing something different. You know why? Because it's Bath time. I'm going to say it every time I can because I just think Erin Bath is different. She gets all the credit in the world. But I'm excited for that matchup too. I'm excited to see if Marquette can come out of this week 2-0 and start to really get on that second half wave of winning these games in the Big East, or if Creighton and Providence are going to give them a tough night. And I think Creighton is one of those teams as well that needs to continue to build their separation as second in the league. So they need this win. So I think those two are some really good games, but it's stacked. I mean, Kim, you're right. Like, we need 2 monitors, 2 TVs, and my phone over here on Friday. It's 5 games. You got to watch one of them.
And one more addition on Grace Fosa. We can't forget she missed months of the season. I think it was a broken hand. She missed at least, I think it was 11 games. She just recently came back and is playing out of her mind. So credit to Grace Fosa.
Yeah. And credit to the Big East that we've got this excitement at this point in the season. Games that matter. Not that games don't matter earlier on in the season, but I mean, to have this much excitement for tight matchups, get your iPads, your computers, your phones to Ice's point, and like be watching every game you can, because we're bound to have some good finishes here. Ladies, it's going to be a wrap. Are we ready to close this thing down?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
We got games to watch.
We got games to watch. Be sure to subscribe to In the Bonus by the Big East Conference on your preferred podcast listening platforms such as iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Deezer, TuneIn, Radio Public, Pandora, Overcast, Aussie, Samsung Podcast, Pocket Cast, Player FM, Simplecast, and Apple Podcasts, as well as the Big East Conference YouTube page, and make sure to like, share, and review. You can also visit bigeast.com for more conference news and information. We'll see you next week for another episode of In the Bonus.
Boom!